Hi, I'm attorney Greg Dell here with attorney Rachel Alters. And Rachel, you just came across a case that was decided yesterday in the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, which reminded you of this issue that affects many people applying for benefits, which is the pre-existing condition limitation. So let's talk a little bit about what that is, and then since we help so many people with the application process, ways that people could possibly get around that pre-existing condition limitation if it's something that comes up. So what is the pre-existing condition limitation?
A pre-existing condition limitation is usually contained in most group policies in their long-term disability plan. And it's really a way of the insurance companies to avoid paying claims when you make a claim prior to 1 year of the plan being in force. So it's really important. Oftentimes I get calls from claimants, potentials who want to make a claim or who have already made a claim, and they've only been employed at their job for less than a year, or sometimes they're employed for several years, but the employer had just offered the long-term disability plan. And when that happens, there's usually a clause which states if the plan has not been enforced for at least 12 months, then the pre-existing condition comes into play, and they look at a 3-month look-back period for the 3 months before the plan was in force to see exactly what you treated for, what doctors were prescribing for you, and if anything during that 3 months was related to the disability you're claiming, they will deny coverage. So it's really, really important to make sure you know when that plan became enforced and to wait at least 12 months to file a claim if you can, in order to avoid that pre-existing condition from kicking in.
Some have 3 months and some have 12 months, so it just depends. But it's not an unfair. I don't think it's an unfair provision in a policy, because if you employ somebody and they're 55 years old and they already have a bad back, and an employer hires them and they work for 3 months and then they say, my back's hurting me. It's kind of to avoid fraud. You really should be it's not unreasonable to say, hey, you got to be working for 12 months and then this coverage will kick in for something that you already had. Otherwise, I don't think a lot of these companies would write these policies. So a recent case, the issues that come up where we see litigation is, I might have had something going on, beforehand, but what my actual disability was not caused by what you're saying it was. And that's where we see a lot of litigation on the pre-existing. So what was it about this particular case you just read that came out 2 days ago that was significant to you?
This was a case where a truck driver filed a lawsuit against Lena, which is also known as Cigna. He was working for the company for around a little under a year, and he developed a macular degeneration issue where his retina detached and he went blind. Now, obviously, in this case, a truck driver cannot drive if he cannot see, so he probably couldn't avoid filing the claim at this point. But he did argue, he appealed the denial, and he argued that the condition that Lena was claiming that caused his retinal detachment, which caused the blindness, was not the reason why he went blind. It was a different condition, and Lena hired 2 different experts to argue that the condition was in fact related. They denied coverage. The plaintiff appealed. The court agreed with Lena, saying that in their opinion they believed that Lena was correct and that he did have a pre-existing condition and therefore he had no coverage. So unfortunately, he cannot see. He's a truck driver. He can no longer work, and he's not covered by his disability policy. And this is an unfortunate situation that happens to a lot of claimants. And in this case, he probably couldn't have avoided filing the claim because he had this serious condition. But in some cases, the claim can be filed at a later date if it's a chronic back condition or something that maybe you can hold out a little bit longer to file so that the pre-existing condition doesn't come into play. But again, it just depends on the situation.
Right, because there's like 140 million working people in the United States. I think it's fair to say that probably about half of them have some kind of office or sedentary type job.
Correct.
So this guy was a truck driver, in this case obviously blind, there's no way he's working.
No.
But many of the claims we deal with are orthopedic type limitations, some cognitive limitations, rheumatoid type conditions, fibromyalgia, lupus, Lyme disease. different things where people have been struggling for a certain period of time, and they may call us and be like, look, I've had this condition, I'm treating, and then we get into their policy and be like, first thing we say is, how long have you had the policy?
Right.
And often they'll be like, well, I had it for 6 months or 7 months. Immediately, we're going to tell you, look, you've got to have that policy for at least 12 months, maybe even 15 months, because of that 3-month
sure.
look back you were talking about. Otherwise, they're just going to deny you for pre-existing conditions. So there are scenarios. Take the classic example of someone who has a back problem, and they're like, look, I'm working, but it's so uncomfortable. And really, and they're 9 months, and they got to get another 3 months. Basically, we're going to tell that claimant, you got to stick it out.
Yep.
And if you do, then you're going to have coverage. If you don't, then they're just going to deny you for the pre-existing. So you can have, people get confused, you can have a pre-existing condition. Most people who are, over 55 have some kind of pre-existing neck, back, or some injury to their shoulder, whether it was 20 years ago or a knee surgery or whatever it may be, and it rears its head again.
Right.
But you have to have basically had, what is it in the pre-existing? No treatment during that 12-month period, or...
Right. And no medications being prescribed for that particular issue. And even if they see that you had one medication prescribed that could have been for something else, but it also treats that condition, they can deny you on that basis too.
Now, there are certainly exceptions. The person who has a back problem and then... And again, this could still be litigated. What if they get in a bad car accident and they go, now it's my back?
Right.
Well... They still may argue you had that back problem beforehand, and now the accident, but
exacerbated
so
it.
they're going to do a serious look back on your medical records. Now, we talked about this in the group context for that 12-month, but we're also always see this on people who have private disability policies, and when you bought your policy, they're going to look back at what you put in that initial application.
Of course they are.
For when you bought it. And that I've had that go back 25 years. So if you failed to disclose a pre-existing condition, that's a little bit different pre-existing condition issue, but something very serious that could also be a basis for denial because you didn't disclose to the carrier a condition you had. So
Absolutely.
If you're dealing with anything pre-existing and you're considering filing a claim or you filed it already, you have to be aware of what your prior medical condition is. The last time you saw a doctor, it's okay if your back was hurting you, but you didn't go to the doctor. But once you got it documented, it's on paper and it's going to be found and it has to be dealt with. So what I encourage you to do, if you have any concern whatsoever about a pre-existing condition, or there's other issues that come up as well, call Rachel, call any of our disability attorneys for a free initial consultation. What we're going to do is review your disability policy for free, let you know what we think are any potential concerns that may come up with your claim, and we'll let you know immediately whether or not we can help you or not. We offer this service anywhere in the country, and we look forward to the opportunity to speak with you.